Okay, our next speaker is a 25-year veteran in the technology and consulting industry as general manager of IBM Gulf, Levant, and Pakistan. He's responsible for IBM's overall business operations, driving business growth and client satisfaction. With a session entitled Trust, Transparency, and Governance in the Age of Generative AI, we are delighted to welcome Shukri to the stage.
Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh. Good morning, Your Excellencies, ladies and gentlemen. It's a pleasure being here. Less than a year ago, I had the pleasure of being here in Doha presenting on AI. And the beginning of my presentation was basically trying to convince or call out to people that they are already using AI. That's not a matter of question. They're using it in their day-to-day life and business. Retrospectively now, this looks only within less than a year, 6 months, looks very, I would say, naive. And the reason for that is because AI now became a fact of life, probably within just less than 12 months. A fact of life to the extent that we are not really questioning whether we are adopting AI. Organizations are going to adopt AI whenever it makes sense, as much as possible. The question now is actually that we are shifting to a very different world where it's not about adding AI on top of some existing capabilities, but indeed we are shifting to a world where AI is a reality. AI first is a reality. So that shift from plus AI to AI first, to the extent that we are witnessing new business models, new businesses being created completely, rewriting the assumptions of the industries they operate in, and starting from a point of view of AI capabilities that are redefining those assumptions. This is not to say that there are no barriers anymore to adopting AI. We are at the beginning of this journey. From complexity of projects that are really complicated, very difficult, and very costly in integrating AI within our business processes for a proper ROI, to challenges around professional skills in AI, capacity building within the organization to make proper use of AI, all the way to a very complex landscape of data structure in a world where AI is extremely data hungry. Our data landscape is extremely complex to make use of AI. And then we haven't even started to put our head around what is the financial model, what's the economic model by which we can scale AI, how expensive some of those models are going to be, and how much are we going to see a return on investment that justifies that cost. We don't even know how we're going to manage this at this stage. And then, last but not least, governance. And governance isn't a single issue. It's a host of issues that I'm going to put a lot of focus on in my speech today. You might ask, for people who have been in the industry, to be sure, he said 25 years, it's a little bit more, and he's not talking about my age. This is the time I spent in the industry. This is not the first time we've seen a question around governance in technology. We saw it in the internet, we saw it in cybersecurity, we saw it in data privacy, we saw it in social network, we saw it in so many domains of technology, that question of governance. Why are we making a big deal out of it, or is it really a big deal? There are a few things that we've seen before and some other things that we are witnessing with AI, the completely different level or proportion. One of them is obvious, which is the speed with which the technology is advancing is making it almost impossible for regulations and governance systems to catch up. The second one is that how deeply integrated is AI going to be in our day-to-day operations and our basic business processes and how we deal with our stakeholders that we serve in business, to the extent that it cannot be governed in isolation of other corporate risk frameworks, dashboards, and systems. So think of all those factors as questions, and they all relate into each other. Think also about we heard in the opening video this morning that absolutely some aspects of AI can go wrong, and when they go wrong, they can go quite wrong. Our job, therefore, to mitigate against that, but we cannot rule out some of the bad actors who will want to use that powerful tool for things to go wrong by design. And that tool for those bad actors is going to be autonomous, is able to adapt to our responses, and is going to be extremely scalable. That's another big reason why we need to think about regulations and governance when it comes to AI. Especially that the complexity of the technology landscape is severe. We are going to get into a very, very complicated technical landscape when we use AI. It is going to be, as I said, autonomous. To the first time, then we are asking ourselves whether we as humans are going to lose control. That's a serious question at the moment because of technology we have created. The other point then, in that landscape, how are we, if we allow some of the AI algorithms to continue to be a black box, i.e. without explainability, how are we going to succeed in maintaining transparency? How can I justify to the student who have just rejected their university application or the customer that have actually denied them their loan request? How can I be transparent if I cannot open that black box and justify how that decision was made? What would that do to the trust between an institution and its constituents? How am I going to protect my reputation in a situation like this? And how, whether I'm a government or a private sector company, going to maintain credibility if I cannot really govern that very powerful technology that I'm using? One of the problems as well is that the magnitude of that impact of that technology is also going to be quite deep into our societies. We're talking about a technology that might change the landscape of economies, is going to do away with some jobs, it's going to create others, it's going to restructure many of the jobs that we need to know, we know today. What is this going to do to the distribution of wealth, to our labor, to our equality within society? What is it going to do to the very social fabric, the social contract that we have with our people in any country? Furthermore, this technology is confronting us with how we are going to behave ethically, and what does that mean in the world of AI? How are we going to practice and demonstrate human rights? And how are we going to explicitly have to train AI models by explaining to them exactly what we mean when we want to describe our human values? Those are new challenges. At the same time, that powerful tool is going to be the playground of severe competition for distinctive advantage between organizations and between countries. But at the same time, it does offer a beautiful promise of collaboration in handling the most serious challenges that the human race has faced so far, things such as climate change, for example. But the fact that some of those challenges are new doesn't mean we have nothing to learn from previous examples. As I said earlier, we tried to regulate things like the internet, data privacy, climate change, social networks, so many of those things. And in the last 12 months, myself and my team have been engaged in a lot of discussions around AI strategies, MVPs, POCs, and others. So we can be able to grasp some of the conclusions that have to be some of the design principles of whatever regulation system or governance structure that we adopt and come up with. One of them is that this is a lost battle if we try to react with speed to technological advancements. We will not be able to. So we are going to have to think more proactively and in a future-looking way about a system or a framework that allows us to navigate around emerging risks that initially we haven't been able to imagine. The other thing is that a lot of the use cases that we are going to see in AI are not fitting neatly the way we would like them within the jurisdiction of an organization or a country. AI applications are going to cross border by definition. Therefore, there is a need for global standards so we can agree on what is it that we mean by when we talk about transparency, what is it that we mean when we talk about safety, what do we actually mean when we talk about explainability. Those should be global standards that we can agree on, especially if we are going to use AI to collaborate together on some of the transnational risks, such as autonomous driving, or security, cybersecurity, or physical security, or global misinformation. We need a set of definition and global standards that can guide this collaboration to set the threshold of what's acceptable and what's not, what's safe and what's not. We need to be explicit about that. Any regulation system or governance is really trying to balance safeguarding our assets and our use of technology, along with not stifling innovation by design. And we can do that in so many ways. Why? Because we are trying to make sure that AI is being used for good, and AI benefits are going to be done in an equitable way. And some of the ways of doing this is going to be about supporting the open AI innovation movement versus a licensed and expensive AI regime, which is going to stifle innovation, increase the cost of working with AI, and give a disproportionate and unfair advantage to larger corporations versus smaller ones and open source developers, for example. Another way is also about thinking of where accountability sits. No one should be immune. Neither AI creators nor AI deployers should be immune to the impact of a misuse of AI. If you are an organization that is using AI in your hiring practices, you cannot simply evade accountability against discrimination with the excuse that you are using AI. Which brings me to the point then, we're reaching to the conclusion that AI should really regulate the use cases rather than the AI algorithm. Regulation should respect the context of the roles we are playing in this AI domain, should respect the use case. We are not going to regulate the same way the way you are going to use AI in modifying the text on your next LinkedIn post. But that's going to be very different when we look at how we're going to regulate autonomous driving, especially when we talk about an autonomous vehicle that needs to respond to a potential collision or an accident situation. Or we are going to look at loan granting or university application or hiring, or even when AI is being used very differently under very different set of regulations when we are trying to diagnose cancer, for example. And therefore, something as well that was mentioned at the beginning, which is putting human at the center of the AI revolution. If we are serious about that, let the human-centric design principle be present in how we develop AI and how do we use AI. If we are serious about not replacing human but supporting them, that needs to be a gun principle in everything we do, including educating the public about where do they fit in all this new AI world. What exposure do they take when they use AI? How their data is being used to train AI models, and how they are going to exercise their basic rights and values in a world where a lot of decisions are taken on their behalf autonomously. That's why people are saying those concepts about empowering the human by digital agents, digital assistants, agentic AI. What does that mean for enterprises? If you are an enterprise that is trying to use AI responsibly, here are some of the considerations. One, it is true that AI governance needs to start with executive sponsorship from the top, but it's equally true that you need to educate all the involved stakeholders, your employees, your suppliers, your customers, your shareholders, about what is your roadmap. Take them on the AI adoption journey with you. You also don't use AI for the sake of AI. You need to be very clear about where does AI fit within your business model. And therefore, what are your business goals that you are trying to make AI serve? Because that only will help you then set a very specific set of metrics for your priorities on governance. What are my governance priorities according to my industry, my business model, my liability exposure, my environment, my operational environment I work within, and the stakeholders I serve? Are my governance priorities around data quality and data protection? Or are they about innovative services? Or is my governance priority around monitoring bias and the potential legal liability I'm going to face when that model goes haywire? What are my governance priorities? Or is it creating a flexible model to try and adapt to several and changing landscape of risk exposure? It's when you put those metrics and start putting them in an integrated framework with a disciplined process that allows you to manage AI lifecycle from the time you pick up an AI model off the shelf, to the time you training, to the time you test it, to the time you put it into production, to the time you decide to retrain it, and to the time where you retire it. Because I need you to remember one thing. I need you to remember that your use cases and your data are going to outlive the AI model. You are going to change and you are going to shift on AI models. Your process, your framework, your governance, and your data need to be protected and need to be thought about even in isolation with a specific AI model. You are going to exchange those. When you have those detailed metrics that are aligned to the business, it's much easier to be able to get the attention of your stakeholders of why are we capturing or prioritizing those governance metrics, and why is it everyone's job in the organization to make sure that we operate within those thresholds because of either the diluting value, ROI, that we get, or because we expose ourselves to more risk if we go beyond those thresholds that we as an organization have set for ourselves. Let that be a framework for transparency, a dashboard that everyone all over the organization can see it, to know within their functions, within their own priorities, how we are, as an organization, are acting and performing against the governance metrics that we have set for ourselves. In a nutshell, what we are saying is that we need to be responsible by design across the whole organization, not in a reactive mode. In IBM, we created watsonx.governance in response to all those requirements, in response to those risks, in response to those governance issues that we believe is going to somehow delay the proper adoption of responsible AI at scale at an enterprise grade. What we wanted to do with watsonx.governance is to help you manage your risk within a proper proactive framework. We wanted to make sure that you can guard your business against any non-compliance, so you remain compliant to the rules that you've set yourself or the regulators are setting on your industry, and also to be able to manage the full life cycle of an AI model to an AI use case to the data that you are using in AI in an integrated platform that is open to all models and all use cases can be deployed anywhere. Finally, what we are really calling for is a call for maturity. AI started initially as a hype. We had a very consumer-like approach to AI. We got excited by it. And I'm here to bring to everyone's attention that we have, as enterprises, we cannot do that. We have responsibilities because, as we saw earlier in the morning, things can go bad. Our job is to make the benefits maximized and to mitigate the risk and accept the reality we are working on. It's going to be a multi-modal world. Half of our use cases are going to be in a non-cloud environment. We are going to have to understand how can we scale for value with understanding our OI. We need to understand that data governance matters because it's going to last and be the distinctive advantage. And governance is going to make the difference between a POC never leaving the sandbox of a POC to actually becoming an enterprise-grade capability. That's the responsibility, ladies and gentlemen, that we need to accept. I do believe if I stand here again in a year's time, most likely we will still be talking about governance and debating whether we got it right or wrong. Thank you very much. I hope that the event today is going to help us take a step forward in that direction. Thank you.